they wouldn't let me turn it up. Yeah, we won't be having the time. Yeah. Thank you. Gluten-full matzah?
My mom got some pretty good gluten-free matzah, actually.
My mom got gluten-free matzah.
Really?
Yeah, but it tasted like it was bad.
Some of it is
Horrible.
disgusting. But the one that my mom got was actually pretty good.
Yeah, we can start. I got matzah in my guitar case. Oh, careful, Katie.
Oh my god. Almost stepped in fruit salad. It's not working out.
Turning your nuts on.
Huh? We are. My parents commented the other time, they were like, oh, we heard you talking to somebody afterwards. Who was that? I'm like, how long after? Like, a
No,
while?
yeah. You haven't seen any of the recordings? I review them to hear how the music sounds.
I ain't got time for that.
Whatever. You already know. Your choice.
You might playing what? Oh, no, this
She's been there, but
I've been there, but no. This thing. Oh, man.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see you. Please come on in, take a seat. If you're having trouble finding a seat, let me know. We'll help you find one. There are still a few good seats left. Can't find them. So before we begin, let's try to calm ourselves and calm our souls. It's been a turbulent week, to say the least. There's a good opportunity for solace and to take a moment to smile, turn to your neighbor, wish them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Take a really deep breath. And let's welcome Shabbat together.
Malachi Asharim, Malachi Melech Malachi Amranu, Kadosh Baruch Ohem Leshalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Melech Malachi Amrachim, Hakadosh Baruch.
So, over the course of this year, we've asked ourselves at Happy Times, is it okay to celebrate? We had first a Hanukkah. We said, in such a dark time, do the candles really bring light to our darkness? And then we had Purim. And we said, in such a threatening time, how can we celebrate our victory over Haman? And now again, during Passover, a lot of people are saying, where's the sameach? Where's the happiness? And even more than what's going on in Israel is all of a sudden now, as we've been celebrating Pesach, we see this outbreak of craziness on college campuses. So I reminded people at the two Seders that I was at, that the Seder, the story of redemption and the story of our freedom goes back to the Torah. So you're talking going back 3,500 years. But the story of the Haggadah only goes back about 2,000 years, maybe a little bit less, when the Haggadah was written by the rabbis in the Mishnaic period, about 1,900 years ago. And at the end of the Seder, we say, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And the reason why is, and think about how profound this is, the Haggadah was written by Jews who were slaves. Right? The Haggadah was not written by Jews celebrating their freedom. The Haggadah was written by the rabbis right after the Second Temple was destroyed, and now they were now slaves to the Romans. And they were being chased, and what they were praying for was not to celebrate their freedom. What they were praying for was to regain the freedom that they once had. So this year, when I'm asked the question, where do you find the sameach? Where do you find the simcha in celebrating Pesach? To me, well, that's always been the story of Pesach, is trying to fight for what we think is right, trying to celebrate the values that we believe in, and the Torah principles that we've been tasked with bringing into this world. On the other hand, there are those who hate our values, and they hate us because of them, and they want to take away our simcha, and they want to take away our joy. So even more so this year, it's incumbent upon us to have joy at our happy times for the principles that we stand for, specifically to show them that they'll never shut out our principles and our way of life. And so think about the rabbis 1,900 years ago hiding in attics, having their Passover Seders when it was illegal to be Jewish. When the rabbis like Rabbi Akiva were being chased by the Romans, and ultimately Rabbi Akiva was killed by the Romans because he refused to stop teaching Torah. And so that's us again today. But we're not hiding in attics. We're right here for everybody to see how proud we are and how much we're going to continue to fight for these principles. So tonight now, let us not feel uncomfortable celebrating Shabbat. Let's take a deep breath and know that we are safe. We will continue to persevere. Our brothers and sisters will thrive in Israel. Eventually this war will end, and we will win and persevere and be victorious somehow, some way. So let's bring a little light to our Shabbat now, and a little sanctification to this moment as we join together in the kindling of our Shabbat lights. Sanu. Baruch atah Adonai. L'chaim. We just want to, everyone probably knows this because tonight's Die Hard night. But if you hadn't had a chance to, if you're observing a yortzeit tonight and you want us to read the name, there's a board in the back. Our new way of doing it is to highlight the name so we know that you'd like that name to be read. If the name's on the first year of mourning, we'll read it automatically. But if it's a yortzeit that you're just observing more than a year, to please, the board is in the back and there's a highlighter there. Just want to make sure everyone has had a chance.
Da
We can be seated. Our Via Hafta on page 36.
ולכל נבנתך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר ברוכים את צוותך, היום עליך, ושילמת מלכך, יזוזם, ושבתך ביתך, ובלכתך ושוכבך וקומך. וקשרתך באומות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבת על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו עשיתם את מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On Monday morning, we will read together from the Torah. Actually, we won't read it together. I'm going to chant it from the Torah. Our Song of the Sea, Micha Bocha prayer. And so tonight, as we get ready for that moment of chanting, of celebrating our freedom this Passover, we sing this version, a version that we've been singing at our Soulful Shabbats. And I wanted to pause for a moment and really teach the chorus, so you guys can be the children of the sea tonight. Can just lift up their spirits, as the rabbi said at the beginning, not let anyone spoil our joys.
If you are comfortable to do so, we rise now for the tefillah. Page 46.
Sifatai tiktar,
We continue silently through page 60 and with our own silent meditations.
Page 348.
לא משנה. לא משנה. לא משנה.
Used to sing that at camp. My grandfather would wear his uniform from Auschwitz at the Seder table. In the Haggadah, we read, Behold, dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. In every generation, we are supposed to see ourselves as having left Egypt. He had that down. When he spoke from the first person saying, I was a slave and now I'm free, it was not just halacha, it was a fact. And when we sang Avadim Chayinu, our ancestors were slaves, again, it was not something we had to imagine. It was true for my family in living memory. As Rabbi Barris said, there's been much talk this year in preparation for Passover as to the proper way to celebrate. How can we celebrate freedom when 130 of our family members are literally in captivity in Gaza? How do we celebrate when Jewish students on college campuses are being told it is not safe for them to leave their dorm rooms? How do we celebrate at a time when we hear cries of from the river to the sea and intifada forever on the left, and the Jews will not replace us on the right? As a third-generation survivor, growing up in a city where I experienced my fair share of anti-Semitism, both from individuals and institutions, I often feel myself becoming cynical, losing hope, wanting to turn away, or at least just turn inward. So I want to lift up a few things from the Seder that give me hope, that remind me celebrating Pesach is exactly what we need to do right now. The first is the eating of the bitter herbs. While many of us like to dab a little horseradish on our gefilte fish and put a smidge onto the matzah to fulfill the mitzvah, Pesachim 1:15 in the Talmud rules that we are actually supposed to chew the maror before swallowing it. Chew on the bitter. How quick is our instinct to get the pain over with, to rip off the Band-Aid, to look on the bright side, to move on. But here we take a moment to savor the bad and the bitter. So I want to name that we're experiencing a lot of bitterness, a lot of pain. For 202 days, 20-year-old Itai Chen has been held hostage by Hamas. 22-year-old Omer Nutra, an American Israeli and grandson of a Holocaust survivor. 70-year-old Shifra Noy, 17-year-old Liri Albag, 39-year-old Carmel Gott, and I won't list them all. List the bitter that the seniors at USC who had their high school graduation canceled because of COVID now won't get to walk for college graduation because of protesters on campus, not only calling for an end to the war or for divestment from Israel, but outwardly calling for intifada, for violence, and making it unsafe for Jewish students. But we don't stay in the bitter. Next, we shift and we move on to the sweet. We can't take the bitter away for the korach, but we add the sweetness by adding to the bitter charoset. So we also remember that campuses had record-breaking numbers of people celebrating at their seders this year. We watched the videos of 20-something New Yorkers singing Am Yisrael Chai on the subway. We show up to services in record numbers. This, maybe not tonight, but in general. We wear our Judaism proudly for those who can't. And the second part of the Seder I want to uplift is the opening of the door. Now, we're actually supposed to open the door twice during the Seder. The first comes from Rav Huna in the Talmud, from Ta'anit. It says, when Rav Huna would eat bread, meaning matzah, don't worry, he would open the door saying, whoever needs, let them come and eat. Rav Huna's behavior is presented as a model for us. But in the next line of the Haggadah, we read that Rav said, I can fulfill all of these customs of Rav Huna except for this one, which I cannot do due to the many soldiers of Mechoza. He wouldn't invite those who are hungry to eat because he feared for his safety. Needing to be safe is real. And yet, and maybe we don't feel like opening our doors. Yet we still do open our doors, and so did Rava at another point in the service, in the Haggadah, when we welcome Elijah. We who learn from Malachi chapter 3 that Elijah is the one to welcome in redemption. So the Haggadah reminds us not to turn in so much that we don't open ourselves up for salvation. The first time my grandfather wore his uniform while celebrating Passover was while he was still in Auschwitz. He'd been assigned to Canada and had found some matzah in a confiscated suitcase. He pocketed it, risking his life. And some in his barracks had let a plum ferment, making a makeshift hooch wine. And that night in his barrack, he shared the bread of freedom with his fellow prisoners. And they asked, why is this night different from all other nights? And they wondered if their cries were reaching heaven, as did our ancestors in Egypt. But they were not the first to celebrate Passover in captivity. We marked our holidays while being oppressed, as we heard, under Roman rule, while being slaughtered by Christians during the Crusades, under Cossacks, imperialist Russia. The first time we celebrated Passover as slaves was when we were, in fact, still in Egypt. The final plague had not come. The edicts were harsher and harsher. Our children were being drowned in the Nile. And it seemed that not even miracles were enough to change Pharaoh's mind. And yet we sat in the dark of the night, and we envisioned a future where we would tell the story of our freedom, tell the story to our children and our children's children, and that they would say, We were once slaves, but now we are free. And if they could envision it, then we can too. If my grandpa and his fellow prisoners could find a moment in hell to tell the story of our liberation and act it out, practice their faith in the face of almost certain death, then how dare we not celebrate? We are a people who know oppression, but we are constantly anticipating and preparing for deliverance. We are a people who know bitterness and now how to transform it with sweetness. We are a people who sing every week, leave a chair at every baby naming, leave a glass of wine and an open door for Elijah. Because maybe today, maybe this moment, we will finally experience redemption. We do not just know the experience of the slave. That is not the only thing built in our bones. We know the exaltation of deliverance. So Pesach Sameach, I hope that you continue to celebrate this wonderful day of freedom with joy and sweeten. I wish you so much sweetness to cover your bitterness. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Greengrass. So not only in our Seder does sweetness follow the bitterness, but also in our calendar. As we are counting the Omer, we're going from the early freedom from slavery to getting the Torah and becoming a people. And so also in our calendar where we will commemorate Yom HaShoah, we'll commemorate Yom HaZikaron, the Israeli Memorial Day, and that is connected to, immediately is followed by Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. So when we see there is bitterness and there is sadness and there is loss and there are memories, there's also the future of moving forward in hope. And that's also what we do when we think of our loved ones who need our prayers for healing. They might right now be in bitterness and sadness, but we pray for them to reach a healing. If you are thinking of loved ones and you would like to share their names for a prayer of healing, please raise your hand very high. Shelley? Thank you. Thank you. Steve? Thank you. Anybody else? Adrian? Thank you. Paul? Thank you. Nancy? Thank you. Joan? Thank you. Don, is that you in the back? Thank you. Maritza? Thank you. Anybody else? We ask God to send the fortitude, perseverance to, sorry. Oh, sorry. Thank you. We ask God to send fortitude and perseverance to those who are fighting addiction, standing up to abuse. We also add, thank you. And we say, Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, Adonai. May you heal the sick. We continue on page 282, and if you're comfortable to do so, please rise as we continue with the Aleinu. You may be seated. We count the Omer. We count the number of days of our people still being held hostage. 1 is for anticipation. 2 are really for anticipation of freedom and peace. And now we think about those of our loved ones who are no longer with us in the physical sense, but we hope that we feel their presence, especially around Seder and holiday. On this Erev Shabbat, we are thinking of those who have passed during the last 30 days. David Frankel, Burton Young, Dr. Bernard Harris, Joel Gordon Brennan, Michael Linder, Rosalind Rosita Spiegel, Barbara Powell, Jacqueline Cott. We're thinking of those who have passed during the last year. Michael Arnold, Joan Axler, Chaim Aklepi, Patricia Barrett, Peter Bass, Barbara Bronfman, June Elizabeth Brown, Bernard Eckstein, Herbert Fink, Larry Stewart Foreman, Tina Forster, Anne Friedlander, Glenn Goldberg, Judith Gilbert Gould, Jennifer Gross, Dr. Jeffrey Hertz, Dr. Warren Janowitz, Howard Kleinberg, Sandra Sandy Kramer, Ellen Ellie Levine, Reba Eskowitz Maggots, Asuka Mashav, Solomon Pinkert, Elisa Poyastro, Karen Michelle Solomon, Dr. David Saracen, Anna Sheldon, Morris Finkelstein, Michael Schellist, Michelle Hope Sherry, David Sokol, Max Spiegelman, Tanya Stern, Ilya Stolyar, Berta Topol, Irene Trupkin, Dr. Florence Oren Wexberg, Joan Wolfe, Daniel Salzberg. And we recognize and commemorate the yortzites of our loved ones, Leslie Adels, Bernard Dubois, Tilly Ann Fink, Irene Kish, Roberta Kutcher Cohn, Robert M. Bob McClaskey Jr., Estelle Merkin, Edith Schild, Barbara Schwartz, Arthur Siegel, Doris Slutsky, Joseph Zisman. Are there any other names we would like to add? Judy Weissman. Thank you. Thank you. Zvika Golod Gershon Spencer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? We turn to page, yes. Who can, I can't? Oh, Steve, I can't. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Our loved ones are memorialized in our hearts and by our deeds. We turn to page 294 and we join in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kori v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lomei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha berichu. La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran b'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehi shalom Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God send peace to all who mourn among us, to all who are bereaved. May God send comfort, and may God send peace to us, to all the world, and to Israel. And together we say, Amen. You may be seated. We invite for words of greeting our president of the congregation, Rich Siegel.
Okay. It didn't make my list, but I'll improvise for you. No, it's okay. Shabbat Shalom. For those of you here that were here last Friday, I hope you had a week overflowing with bon maman jelly. For those of you who weren't here last week, it's available on live stream. I'd like to thank the clergy for a great soulful Shabbat. Are we still calling it soulful Shabbat, or is it just Shabbat? Okay. So, Rabbi Barris, Rabbi Greengrass, amazing sermon, Rabbi Klepi, Cantor Koyot, and of course our wonderful musicians. Thank you for joining us again. So, also, those of you who weren't here last Friday night, it was my first triple mazel as president. We actually had 3 b'nai mitzvot, and now we have no mazel. So this is actually my first mazelless Shabbat. So, of course, you're like, why would you even bring that up? And it's because I have like a template that I use every week. It's thank the clergy, mazels, announcements, and then something stupid. So if I took out the mazels this week, when I go next week and I start with this week's, I would skip the mazels and I would insult the B'nai Mitzvah family. So I apologize for that. But in terms of announcements, Rabbi Klepi wanted me to highlight this Thursday the Unbiased Initiative, Eat, Pray, Connect. It's in your program. Not to be confused with, I wanted to highlight also this Thursday. Sorry, at the Hub. You know, people come up and say you're so funny. I tell people I'm not really very funny. It's just funny things happen to me and I tell people about it. But if you want to see like a real funny person, this Thursday at the Hub, Rachel Feinstein's going to be here. Go on to YouTube, watch some of her videos. She's really, really very funny and very, very talented. Also, next Friday is Teacher Appreciation Shabbat. I encourage you to come. That's always a great event honoring our teachers. And then in 2 Thursdays, I wanted to highlight, also in the Hub, in partnership with the Miami Chamber Music Society, the Ariel Quartet from Israel is going to be here with special guest pianist Marina Radushina, who is an internationally acclaimed pianist from the Ukraine who came to Miami to get her doctorate in music at the University of Miami. Of course, what Marina is best known for is she was the Abby and Allison Siegel's piano teacher when they were in elementary school. And I have to tell you, when I mentally list all the amazing accomplishments of my daughters and all the wonderful things I got to experience with them, their piano recitals were about as close to the bottom of that list as possible. But it had nothing to do with Marina. She's an amazing pianist. So last, I too would be remiss if I didn't say anything about what was going on our college campuses across our country. I kind of bring a different perspective to it, and I suspect this may result in me getting a record number of emails following my remarks tonight. For those of you keeping track at home, the current record for the number of emails I've gotten in response to a Shabbat greeting is 1. So I may beat that tonight. So my perspective, obviously, I'm just outraged and flabbergasted by what's going on at campuses around our country. But I actually bring to it a little different perspective, and among everyone I know, a unique perspective. My sister is 14 years older than me, and one of my earliest memories as a kid was some tumult in our family. And at the time, as you'll see why soon, I had no idea what was going on. But it wasn't until many years later that I learned that my sister was a freshman at Kent State University when 4 of her classmates were murdered by the Ohio National Guard while they were protesting the Vietnam War. And she came home and she never went back to college. And it had a pretty profound impact on her and on our family. And when I see what's going on in college campuses today, you know, I want it to end. I want it to stop. I want these kids to come to their senses. But I don't want another tragedy to occur. So while we all need to continue to work as a community to support our Jewish children on college campuses across the country, but at the same time, we need to implore those in power to respond quickly and decisively, but God willing, not in a manner that we're still going to be talking about 54 years later. I wish you all a peaceful Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rich. So there's a lot going on you'll find in your program, and there is a wonderful closing song, which we debuted we debuted it right before the Seder. Rabbi Barris wrote a new song, and it is on your song sheets. He wrote a parody. Well, they'll figure it out once you hit the first chord that it's a parody. And so for this, you might as well rise, as we're going to really try to bring in the joy, bring in our love for Israel, bring in our love for the universities and colleges in the state of Florida, and a couple of others maybe, and join with us.
Torah's voice. In the morning she calls me. Her heart reminds me of my home far away. Sitting at the Seder, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. Israel, road to Jaffa, take me home. Ancient road, modern roads, take me home to the place I belong. Say to Israel, road to Jaffa, take me home. Modern roads, take me home. Down ancient roads, take me home. Down modern roads.
There's plenty more where that came from. Ladies and gentlemen, but on your way out, we're trying something new so that people don't have to come up and clean after us, which I always hate. if you could take your papers and everything you have and leave them on the table right as you exit the sanctuary, then no one has to come and clean them up afterwards. It'll be a lot easier for our staff. Want to invite you to turn to your neighbor and wish them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah.
You call me buddy?
Huh? Everybody?